Close your eyes. Let the weight of the day dissolve into the dark behind your eyelids. There is a silence here, a comforting, heavy silence. But in the world of the Elder Scrolls, silence is not empty. Silence is a canvas. Imagine, if you will, that your sleep is not merely a pause in your life, but the very engine of a universe. Imagine that everything you see, everything you touch, every person you have ever loved or hated is nothing more than a fleeting figment of a hallucination. A neural spark in the mind of something ancient, something colossal, something that must never, ever wake up. Tonight, we journey to the very edge of existence. Beyond the mountains of Skyrim, beyond the ash wastes of Morrowind, beyond the Daedric realms of Oblivion, we go to the beginning. Before time, before space, to the primal interaction that started it all. In the lore of the deepest scholars, those who read the Elder Scrolls until their eyes turn into white glass, there is a secret that drives men mad. The secret is this: reality is a dream. We call him the Godhead, Anu. Picture a being of infinite complexity existing in a void of nothingness. There is no where for him to be. There is no when. There is only the static of pure existence. To cope with the solitude, to cope with the crushing weight of eternity, the Godhead sleeps. And in this sleep, he fractures. It begins with a duality. Even in the deepest coma, there is conflict. The light and the dark, the stasis and the change. Anu, the static force. Padme, the force of change. Visualize them not as gods with faces, but as cosmic currents, like oil and water swirling in a black ocean, like two serpents of smoke, one white, one black, twisting around each other in the throat of the void. Anu wants everything to stay the same. He is the order, the light, the crystal that never breaks. Padme is the chaos, the fear, the entropy that rots the fruit and crumbles the stone. As the Godhead dreams, these two forces clash, over and over again. A violent, silent war inside a sleeping mind. From their collision, the gray takes shape. The maybe. The Arbus. The Arbus is the universe of the Elder Scrolls. It is the gray overlap between is and is not. Listen to the sound of that collision. A low, thrumming vibration. The hum of magicka. It flows like blood from a wound that never heals. The stars you see in the night sky of Tamriel, they are not suns. They are tears in the fabric of the dream, letting the raw magic of the outside seep in. But let us go deeper, into the psychology of this dream. When you dream, you create people. You create landscapes. For a moment, they feel real. The person in your dream has a history, a name, a desire. But when you wake up, they vanish. They never existed. They were just extensions of you. Now apply this horror to a civilization. The proud Altmer in their crystal towers, the hardy Nords singing in their mead halls, the intricate clockwork of the Dwemer. They are all just thoughts. They are distinct personalities of the Godhead, trying to understand himself. Schizophrenia on a cosmic scale. Every war in Tamriel is just the Godhead fighting with himself. Every act of love is the Godhead loving himself. It is a lonely, terrifying truth. And this is where the unease settles in. The atmosphere of our story tonight is not one of jump scares, but of existential dread. The kind of dread that comes when you look in a mirror, and for a split second, you don't recognize the face looking back. The universe is fragile. If the Godhead stirs, if the sleeper turns in his bed, mountains crumble, eras vanish, history is rewritten. We call these dragon breaks, moments where time loses its linearity because the dreamer is having a nightmare. Imagine living in a world where logic is fluid, where 1 + 1 might equal 3 if the dreamer wills it. This is the foundation of the world, a house built on sand, a song sung in a room that is slowly running out of air. And in this volatile, shifting dream, lesser spirits began to form. They crystallized from the mist, the et ada, the original spirits. Some gravitated toward the light of Anu. We call them the Aedra. Some gravitated toward the chaos of Padome. We call them the Daedra. But they were all trapped, floating in the gray. Immortal, yes. Powerful, yes. But aimless. Ghosts in a machine with no purpose. They played with the stuff of creation, building realms of infinite geometry, only to tear them down a moment later. It was a playground of gods, devoid of consequence. Until one of them had an idea. A dangerous idea. A trickster. A doom drum. Lorcan. He looked at the dream and saw that it was stagnant. He saw that they were just puppets acting out the same play for eternity. He wanted more. He wanted permanence. He wanted to build a trap that would force the dream to become real. He wanted to build Mundus, the mortal plane. But creating something real requires a sacrifice. In a dream, you can fly without effort. But to walk on the ground, to feel gravity, to feel pain, that costs something. Lorcan began to whisper to the other spirits, a smooth, persuasive hiss in the darkness. He promised them a new world, a world where they could be fathers and mothers of a new reality. He didn't tell them the price. He didn't tell them that to create the world, they would have to die. Or worse, become the earthbones. The stage is set. The dreamer sleeps deep. The duality swirls. And the architect of mortality is unfolding his blueprints. The air grows colder now. The shadows lengthen. Can you feel the weight of the wheel turning? We are just getting started. The dream is stable, for now. Rest your mind on this image. A single golden wheel turning in a void of black ink. Slowly, rhythmically, hypnotically. This is the Arbus. This is the mind of God, and you are a microscopic speck of dust floating within it. Safe, small, unreal. Stay in the darkness a moment longer. Let the silence of the void settle around your shoulders like a heavy velvet cloak. We have spoken of the dreamer. We have spoken of the primal clash between order and chaos. Now, we must look at the shape of the prison. For that is what the world is in the eyes of the ancient mystics. A prison, a trap, a beautiful geometric cage designed to strip gods of their power. In the churning gray of the Orbis, the spirits, the et ada, floated in absolute bliss. They were beings of pure light, pure concept. There was the spirit of time, Akatosh, the spirit of mercy, Mara, the spirit of logic, Julianos. They existed in a state of perfect potential. But potential is not reality. To exist as a concept is to be a ghost. You cannot touch. You cannot bleed. You cannot learn, for you already know everything you are. It was a golden stagnation, an eternity of nothing happening. Enter Lorcan, the space god, the doom drum, the trickster. Imagine him not as a man, but as a shadow moving against the light, a void within the void. While the other spirits basked in their own glory, Lorcan looked at the structure of the dream and saw the wheel. Visualize a great wheel turning sideways. This is the structure of the orbis. The rim of the wheel is Aetherius, the realm of pure magic, the source of all life. The spokes of the wheel are the Aedra, the gods who would bind the world together. The spaces between the spokes? That is oblivion, the void of the Daedra. And at the very center, the hub. The hub was empty. It was a hole in the universe waiting to be filled. Lorcan gathered the spirits. Can you hear his voice? It is not a sound, but a vibration in the soul, a low frequency that rattles the teeth. He laid out his blueprints. He showed them a plan for a new plane of existence, a place where things would be solid, a place where time would move forward, not in circles. Mundus, he whispered. The arena. He told them it would be a place of self-reflection. He told them that by creating this world, they would understand themselves better. He promised them fatherhood. He promised them legacy. He spoke of mountains that would not dissolve, oceans that would not evaporate. He spoke of mortality not as a curse, but as a texture. To feel the rough stone, the cold wind, the heat of a fire, these were sensations unknown to beings of pure light. The Aedra were seduced. Magnus, the architect, drew the plans. He designed the physics, the light, the colors. Akatosh promised to provide the linearity of time so that cause could lead to effect. Mara promised to fill the world with love. Kine promised the breath of the sky. They looked at the blueprints and saw beauty. They did not see the chains. Lorcan smiled, a smile that cracked the firmament, because he knew the secret. He knew the cost. To create something finite out of the infinite, you must amputate parts of yourself. You cannot pour the ocean into a cup without spilling the ocean. To build the world, the gods would have to give up their divinity. They would have to give up their freedom. They would have to become the building blocks, the girders, the cement. This is the horror of creation in the Elder Scrolls. The world is not a gift from the gods. The world is the gods. The ground you walk on, it is the comatose body of a spirit. The wind on your face, it is the sigh of a dying deity. The laws of physics, they are the calcified bones of entities that once roamed the stars. But the Daedra were clever. The princes of oblivion, Molag Bal, Mehrunes Dagon, Azura, they heard Lorcan's pitch and they recoiled. They saw the trap. They refused to give pieces of themselves. They refused to amputate their power. And so, they created their own realms, pocket dimensions within the void. But these realms are just extensions of themselves. They are not independent. Only Mundus is independent. Only Mundus is real. Because Mundus is built on sacrifice. Slowly, the construction began. The great gears of the universe started to turn. The golden eye of Magnus opened. The earth bones were laid. And as the structure formed, the Aedra felt their power draining away. They felt their light dimming. They felt the cold creeping in. Panic set in. Confusion. "What is happening to us?" they cried. "Why are we fading?" But it was too late. The trap had snapped shut. The concrete was setting. They were no longer spirits floating in the ether. They were the planets hanging in the sky. They were the laws of nature. They were trapped in the dream of the Godhead, pinned down by gravity and time. Lorcan watched from the center. He had tricked them, but he had also given them the greatest gift of all, the chance to transcend. But we will get to that later. For now, focus on the tragedy, the betrayal. The music of the spheres became a funeral dirge. The birth of the world was a scream of agony. The hub was filled. Mundus was born. And the gods looked at Lorcan with eyes that were no longer blindingly bright, but dim and full of fury. The peaceful sleep of the Godhead was disturbed. A nightmare had begun in the center of his mind. A nightmare called existence. Take a deep breath. Feel the solidity of the room around you. Is it real? Or is it just the calcified remains of a tricked god? The distinction is thinner than you think. The trap has snapped shut. The door is locked. The key has been thrown into the void. We stand now at the dawn of the Merethic era, at the very first moment of linear time. This is the moment known as convention. It is not a meeting. It is a trial. It is an execution. It is a cosmic autopsy performed on a living patient. The Aedra, diminished and horrified, looked upon their hands. Hands that were once made of starlight were now turning to flesh and bone. They felt the rot of mortality setting in. They realized that Lorcan had lied. He had not promised them a kingdom. He had promised them a grave. Magnus, the architect, the one who drew the blueprints, was the first to react. He saw the flaw in the design. He saw that the magic required to sustain Mundus was too great. It would consume them all. Panic. Pure, blinding panic. Magnus did not fight. He ran. Picture a being of infinite light tearing through the fabric of the sky. He leaped from Mundus, trying to return to Aetherius, the realm of pure magic outside the wheel. He punched a hole in the firmament, a jagged, bleeding wound in the black ceiling of the world. We call that wound the sun. When you look up at the sun in the Elder Scrolls, realize this. It is not a ball of gas. It is not a star. It is a hole. It is the exit wound of a fleeing god. The light that shines down is not sunlight. It is the raw magic of Aetherius leaking through the puncture. Other spirits followed him, the Magnagi. They were smaller, faster. They punched smaller holes as they fled the sinking ship. We call those holes the stars. The sky is a sieve. The night is a broken roof. But not everyone could escape. The heavyweights, Akatosh, Mara, Stendar, they were too invested. They were too entangled in the earth bones. They were stuck. And their fear turned to cold, hard rage. They convened at the Adamantine Tower, the Tower, the spike of reality driven into the chaotic soil of the Dawn era to hold it steady. There they dragged Lorcan, the trickster, the liar. Imagine the scene. a tower of impossible geometry rising from a sea of gray sludge. The gods, now half-mortal, surrounding the doom drum. Trinimac, the knight of the gods, the golden champion, stepped forward. He did not speak. There were no words left. He reached into Lorkhan's chest. The sound of ribs cracking echoed across the continents. It was the sound of the first tectonic plates shifting. With a wet, visceral tear, Trinimac ripped out Lorkhan's heart. But here is the twist. Here is the horror. Lorkhan laughed. Even as his chest was hollowed out, even as his divine spark was held in Trinimac's bloody fist, he laughed. Because the heart could not be destroyed. The heart was the world. To destroy the heart would be to destroy the very reality they were trying to salvage. They were stuck with it. Auriel, the time dragon, took the heart. He attached it to an arrow, a metaphor, perhaps, or a literal weapon of god logic. He drew his bow. The wood groaned with the tension of an epic. "But I shall drive it into the sea," Auriel thundered, "where it shall lie forever, buried and forgotten." He released the string. The arrow sang across the sky like a falling star. It flew over the new oceans, over the forming forests. It crashed into the eastern sea. The impact was cataclysmic. From the splash, a mountain rose, a mountain of fire and ash, a cancer on the face of the world. Red Mountain, Vardenfell. The heart sank deep into the magma, pulsing. Thump, 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 thump. A rhythm, a beat, the heartbeat of the world. Lorkhan's body was left to rot. His flesh became the two moons, Maser and Secunda, the split corpus. Look at them tonight, one large, one small. They are the decaying halves of a corpse orbiting the world he tricked into existence. They look down on us, silent witnesses to the crime. And his spirit, his hunger, it wanders the void ghost, the missing god. Shezar, he is the space between the atoms. He is the whisper in the ear of tyrants and heroes. So here we are. Act 1 is finished. The stage is built. The lights are on, leaking through the holes. The floor is sticky with divine blood. The trap is complete. And now the mortals begin to wake up inside the cage. They think they are free. They think they are alive. But they are just parasites living on the corpse of a dead god, warmed by the light of a god who abandoned them. Welcome to Tamriel. The nightmare has officially begun. The dust of creation settles. The volcano cools, just enough to form a crust, though the fire beneath never sleeps. The gods are gone. Some fled to the stars. Some died to become the earth. But what was left behind? The scraps, the leftovers, the descendants of the spirits who were too weak to flee and too strong to fully die. We call them the Elnephe, the old bones. They were the first inhabitants of this new, terrifying reality, and immediately they split. A fracture ran down the center of their psyche, a mirror of the ancient war between Anu and Padme. This split defines every moment of history in Tamriel. It is the reason for every drop of blood ever spilled. It is the reason the world feels so heavy. On one side, the old Elnephe, the ancestors of the Mer, the elves. Visualize them not as the pointy-eared rangers of fantasy tropes, but as creatures of immense, tragic grief. They looked at their hands that were once made of pure light, and saw them withering. They felt age. They felt hunger. To the elves, existence is a torment. Mundus is not a home, it is a prison. They remember the time before. They remember being gods, and they hate Lorcan for it. To them, he is the Sep, the demon, the trickster who stole their divinity and locked them in a cage of meat. Their entire culture, their towering spires of glass, their obsession with lineage, their magic, is a desperate attempt to claw their way back up, to return to the spirit state, to escape the trap. On the other side, the Wanderers, the ancestors of men, the Nords, the Redguards, the Imperials, they did not grieve. They looked at this new world, this harsh, biting, brutal world, and they smiled. They did not see a prison. They saw an arena. To them, Lorcan is not a demon. He is Shor. He is Shezar, the hero. He gave them the gift of struggle. He gave them the chance to prove themselves. They do not want to return to the static nothingness of the spirit world. They want to conquer this world. They want to live. They want to bleed. This is the schism. The elves want to unmake the world, to become gods again. The humans want to sustain the world, to become something new. It is a war of philosophy played out with swords and spells. Imagine two people looking at a wall. One sees a barrier preventing them from leaving. The other sees a shelter protecting them from the void. Both are right, and that is why they must kill each other forever. The horror lies in the elven perspective. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing you have been lobotomized, that you are a shadow of what you were, that your body is a rotting suit you cannot take off. This is the sundering that drives the Thalmor. It drives the Dwemer. It drives the antagonist of our story. They began to build towers, white gold, red mountain, crystal-like law, snowthroat. These are not just buildings. They are metaphysical pins, needles stuck into the skin of reality to hold it in place, or to manipulate it. The elves built them to focus magic, to try and ascend. They tried to hack the dream, but the dream fights back. The atmosphere shifts now. We leave the abstract dawn and enter the era of history. But history in the Elder Scrolls is slippery. It is written by the winners, and then rewritten by the gods, and then erased by dragon breaks. In the shadows of Red Mountain, a new race was emerging. A race that rejected both the elven grief and the human acceptance. The Dwemer, the Deep Elves. They did not worship the gods. They did not hate them. They despised them. They looked at the Aedra and Daedra and saw only incoherent power. They saw the mechanics behind the curtain. And they decided, if reality is a dream, then we will build our own alarm clock. The stage is set for the greatest disappearance in history, and the rise of the central figure of our nightmare. A figure who looked at the wheel, looked at the tower, and said, "I am the dreamer." The schism is the wound. The towers are the stitches, and something is pulling at the thread. While the elves wept for their lost divinity, and men fought for their new home, another race turned their backs on the sky entirely. They dug deep into the crust of the world, into the flesh of the earth. The Dwemer, the deep folk, the dwarves. But erase the image of the ale-swilling, axe-wielding dwarf of other fantasies. The Dwemer were not miners. They were philosophers. They were scientists. They were the most terrifying race to ever walk the surface of Nirn, because they possessed a weapon sharper than any sword. Logic. They looked at the gods, the Daedra, the Aedra, and they were unimpressed. To a Dwemer, a god was just a being with a higher magica pool, a bully, a ghost with delusions of grandeur. They refused to worship. Instead, they studied. Imagine walking through a Dwemer city, great brass pipes pulsing like arteries, steam hissing from vents like the breath of a mechanical dragon. The air smells of oil, ozone, and ancient dust. Everything is geometric. Everything is calculated. There is no art here, only function. But the function is the art. The Dwemer discovered a secret art known as tonal architecture. They realized that reality is a song. The dream of the Godhead is not a visual dream, but a sonic one. The music of the spheres. If you can hear the song, you can sing along. But if you can determine the notes, you can change the song. You can rewrite reality by shouting at it in the correct frequency. Deep under Red Mountain, the Dwemer chief tonal architect, Kagranak, found something. He found the heart of Lorcan. Still beating, still warm. The radioactive core of the world's creation. Most would have fled. Most would have worshipped. Kagranak got to work. He built tools. Keening, a dagger that acts as a tuning fork, focusing the sound of the heart. Sunder, a hammer that strikes the tone, breaking the linearity of God time. Wraithguard, a gauntlet to protect the wielder from instant annihilation. His plan was the ultimate blasphemy. He did not want to return to the spirits. He did not want to serve the spirits. He wanted to build a new spirit, a machine god, the Numidium, the brass tower, the walking way. Picture a golem of brass and magic, 1,000 feet tall. Its skin is made of the melted souls of the Dwemer. Its heart is the heart of the world. Kagranak's goal was simple and terrifying. He wanted to force the universe to acknowledge the Dwemer not as mortals, but as equal to the Godhead. He wanted to say no to the world so loudly that the world would crack. This was the divine skin, a vessel to transcend the dream, to wake up from the nightmare by becoming the lucid dreamer. But the Chimer, the ancestors of the Dark Elves, led by Indoril Nerevar, heard of this. They were devout Daedra worshippers. To them, building a machine god was an insult to Azura, Boethia, and Mephala. Tensions rose. The drums of war began to beat in the deep tunnels. The Battle of Red Mountain was approaching. But amidst the politics and the armies, there was one Chimer lord who was fascinated by the Dwemer, a friend to Nerevar, a charismatic, brilliant, loyal friend, Vorin Dagoth, Lord Dagoth. He looked at the tools, he looked at the heart, and unlike Nerevar, who saw danger, Vorin saw potential. He saw the truth the Dwemer were trying to reach. Why serve the gods, he wondered, when we can replace them? The gears are turning, the steam pressure is critical. The tonal resonators are humming a frequency that makes your teeth ache. The Dwemer are about to conduct an experiment that will delete them from history. And Vorin Dagoth is standing in the front row, watching, waiting. The silence of the deep is about to be broken by a sound that will shatter time itself. The air in the chamber of the heart is hot enough to blister skin. The noise is deafening. Clashing steel, screaming chimer, the hiss of steam automata. The Battle of Red Mountain rages. But in the center of the storm, there is a strange stillness. Kagranak, the High Engineer, stands before the heart of Lorcan. The tools are in his hands. He realizes the war is lost. The Chimera armies are at the gates. He has one choice left, a desperate gamble. He will activate the Numidium now. He will force transcendence upon his people. He raises sunder. He strikes the heart. Tong. He raises keening. He carves the tone. E. And then silence. Instant, absolute silence. In a single heartbeat, every Dwemer on the face of Tamriel vanishes. The warrior in the hallway? Gone. The mother in the stronghold? Gone. The astronomer at his telescope? Gone. Only their armor remains. Thousands of brass suits clatter to the ground simultaneously. A rain of empty metal. They did not die. They did not teleport. They underwent a process known as zero-sum. Here is the horror of the Godhead. To transcend, you must realize you are a dream. You must look at the mathematical equation of the universe, see the I, yourself, and see the universe, the Godhead. You must assert that I equals the universe. But logic dictates that 1 plus -1 equals 0. If you realize you are part of a dream, logic dictates you do not exist. The Dwemer realized the truth, but they lacked the ego to deny the logic. They did the math. The math said, "You are not real." And they agreed. They were calculated out of existence. They became the skin of the Numidium, a fused soul of a race that said no. Nerevar and Vorin Dagoth stood in the silent chamber, surrounded by empty armor and the pulsing heart. They had won. The enemy was gone, but the temptation remained. Nerevar made Vorin swear an oath. "Guard these tools. Do not use them. I will consult with the tribunal." Vorin, loyal Vorin, took the oath. He stood guard, alone in the dark, with the heart of a god. But the heart whispers. It sings a song of power. And Vorin listened. He looked at the empty armor of the Dwemer and thought, "They failed because they used reason. I will not use reason. I will use madness. I will use dreams." Nerevar returned with his advisors, Vivek, Almalexia, Sothasil. But Vorin was changed. He refused to give up the tools. He claimed Nerevar was betraying the oath. They fought. Vorin was struck down, driven into the depths of the mountain, presumed dead. And then the betrayal, the foul murder. The tribunal, Nerevar's wife, his brother, his teacher, they looked at the tools. They looked at the dead Nerevar. They made a choice. They used the tools on the heart. They stole the divine power for themselves. They became living gods, the Almsivi. They built a paradise in Morrowind. They rewrote history. They claimed Nerevar died of wounds from the battle. They covered up the truth with golden lies. But deep beneath the mountain, in the magma and the dark, Vorin Dagoth did not die. He slept, bound to the heart, and in his sleep he began to dream. Unlike the Dwemer, he did not vanish. He anchored himself. He began to believe that he was the center of the universe. He began to believe that he was the Godhead. The trap of Act 2 is complete. The Dwemer are gone. The tribunal are false gods. And the monster is gestating in the womb of the world. Time flows like thick tar. Eras pass. Empires rise and fall like tides. The second era ends. The third era begins. The tribunal gods sit in their palaces, their skin gleaming gold and gray, confident in their immortality. But their battery is running low. They need to return to the Red Mountain to recharge their powers at the heart. But this time, when they return, the door is barred. Someone is waiting for them. Vorin Dagoth is awake. But he is Vorin no longer. He has shed his mortality. He has shed his sanity. He has become something else. The ancient texts call him the Sharmat, the devil, the sleeper, the older brother. To understand the horror of Dagoth-Ur, you must understand what happened to his mind during those long centuries of isolation in the dark, hugging the beating heart of the world. He looked at the tower. He looked at the wheel. He saw the same truth the Dwemer saw. Reality is a dream. He saw the same truth Vivek saw. I am part of the dream. But where the Dwemer said, I am not, and vanished, and where Vivek said, I am and I are all we, Dagoth-Ur made a terrifying error in syntax. He looked at the universe and said, I am, and you are all me. It sounds similar, but the difference is the difference between a messiah and a cancer. Solipsism weaponized. Dagoth-Ur believes that he is the dreamer. He believes that every person in Tamriel, every peasant, every king, every god, is just a figment of his imagination. And because he loves himself, he wants to save everyone by reabsorbing them back into himself. He does not hate you. He loves you. He wants you to become part of his flesh. He wants to erase the barrier between you and him. In his eyes, your individuality is a sickness. It is a lonely delusion. He offers the cure. From the crater of Red Mountain, a new wind begins to blow. The blight, the ash storms, red, choking dust that blots out the sun. It is not just ash, it is his will. It is his skin flaking off and covering the world. When you breathe in the ash, you breathe in his dreams. People in their beds start to hear a voice. A smooth, cultured, comforting voice. Lord Dagoth invites you to join the flesh divine. The sixth house is risen. The sleeper is awake. They wake up screaming. They wake up changing. Tumors grow. Flesh expands. Eyes rot and fall out, only to be replaced by a third eye in the forehead. This is not a plague. This is Corpus, the divine disease. To us, it looks like a zombie apocalypse. To Dagoth-Ur, it is an upgrade. He is sharing his immortality with you. He is making you stronger. He is making you him. The tribunal tried to fight him, but they could not. They were cut off from the heart. Their power began to fade. Dagoth-Ur captured the tools. He holds the hammer and the blade. He is building a new god, a second Numidium, a Kulakan. The second act of the Godhead's nightmare is simple. The dreamer within the dream is waking up, and he intends to consume the rest of the dream until only he remains. A universe of one, a song of one note, an eternal golden silence. The wind howls outside the ghost fence. The ash piles up against the windows. Do you feel that itch on your skin? Do you hear the furniture whispering? The Sharmat is calling. The corruption does not begin with an explosion. It begins with a whisper. It begins in the safety of the home. Imagine walking into a house in the city of Balmora. It is a quiet night. The Siltstriders mourn outside the walls. You enter the home of a friend, a merchant, a scholar, a normal man. But the inside of the house is wrong. The lights are dim. The air smells of dry earth and old spices. And the furniture. The chairs are not on the floor. The tables are not where they should be. They are stacked. Chairs balanced on tables. Books balanced on chairs. Plates, cups, silverware, all piled into a precarious, trembling spire in the center of the room. A crude, domestic tower. They are trying to rebuild the structure of the universe with household objects. They are trying to reach the sky from their living room. And there, in the corner, stands your friend. He is shirtless. His skin is pale, dusted with gray powder. He is swaying back and forth. He is a sleeper. He is awake, yet he is dreaming. Look closely at his eyes. They are wide open, but they do not see you. They see the golden mask of the Sharmat. They see the red mountain. He mutters to himself, a loop of nonsense and prophecy. The soul of the sixth house, the tribe unmourned. On the desk, there is a small object, an ash statue. It is heavy, dark, made of compressed volcanic matter. It depicts a figure with a gaping hole in its chest. This is not a decoration. It is a receiver. Just as a radio picks up a signal, this statue picks up the song of Dagoth-Ur. It hums with a low-frequency magica. It broadcasts the nightmare directly into the brain of anyone who sleeps near it. This is the horror of the sixth house cult. It is not a military invasion. It is a psychic invasion. Dagoth-Ur does not need to kick down your door. He just needs you to close your eyes. As the disease progresses, the humanity strips away. The dreamer evolves. First, the ash zombie. Look at his face. Where his nose and eyes should be, there is nothing. A crater of flesh. Why? Because he does not need eyes to see the dream. He does not need a nose to smell the ash. He has hollowed himself out to make more room for the god. Then, the ash ghoul. The features distort further. A proboscis grows, a musical trunk. They are not just soldiers, they are instruments. When they gather in the red-lit shrines of the cog-filled ruins, they sing. A discordant, buzzing harmony that weakens reality. They are a hive mind. There is no I in the sixth house. There is only us. And us is him. If an ash zombie sees you in the darkest tunnel of the sewers, Dagoth-Ur sees you from the summit of Red Mountain. If you kill one, the pain is felt by the god, but it is distant, like a pinprick on a giant's finger. The horror here is the loss of self, the total surrender of identity. In a world of harsh survival, where the gods are silent or cruel, the Sharmat offers something intoxicating. Belonging. Absolute, unconditional belonging. Come to me, he whispers. Stop fighting. Stop thinking. Just be. The sleepers in the cities are waiting. They are the sleeper agents in the truest sense. Waiting for the signal. Waiting for the moment when the furniture towers topple and the city burns. Not with fire, but with the fever of a waking dream. The trap of the universe is lonely. Dagoth-Ur offers company. Would you refuse? Really? even if you were very, very tired? Into this suffocating nightmare of ash and enforced unity, a variable is introduced. A glitch. A stranger. They arrive not with fanfare, but in chains. In the hull of a prison ship, rocking on the gray waves of the Sea of Ghosts. Born on a certain day to uncertain parents. This is the prophecy of the Nerevarine. But look closer at the wording. It is not a promise of salvation. It is a set of conditions for an experiment. In the metaphysics of the Elder Scrolls, there is a powerful concept known as the prisoner. While kings and gods are bound by their nature, Molag Bal must dominate, Akatosh must endure, Dagoth-Ur must conquer. The prisoner is unbound. The prisoner has no history until the game begins. They have no face until you carve it. Because they are uncertain, they are free. They are the only beings in the dream capable of true free will. They are the lucid dreamers who have not yet woken up. Azura, the Daedric prince of dawn and dusk, plays a long game. She does not fight Dagoth-Ur directly. She cannot. His connection to the heart makes him invincible to gods. So she sends a mortal, a guided missile made of flesh and doubt. But this stranger is not the first. Travel to the Cavern of the Incarnate, a hidden, glowing grotto on the jagged coast of Azura. Here lies the tragedy of the prophecy. Walk among the spirits. Peakstar, Igilon, Erur-Dan. They are ghosts now. Blue, wavering phantoms standing by their own graves. They were Nerevarines too. They were heroes. They were warriors, scholars, mages. They tried to fulfill the prophecy. They tried to fight the Sharmat, and they failed. They were not the one. They were just attempts. Discarded drafts of a story Azura is trying to write. They give you their gear. They give you their advice. Don't be like us, they whisper. Don't die. It is a chilling realization. You are walking on a path paved with the bones of people better than you. Why is the Nerevarine different? Perhaps because the Nerevarine is a nothingness that can absorb anything. Dagoth-Ur is the ultimate I am. The Nerevarine is the ultimate I am not yet. When they meet, the false god and the reincarnated general, it is a clash of ontologies. Dagoth-Ur invites the Nerevarine to Red Mountain. He does not lock the door. He prepares a place for them. Come, Nerevar. Come and look upon the heart. He believes he can seduce you. He believes that if he explains his logic, his beautiful, twisted logic of the flesh divine, you will join him. He wants his brother back. He wants his friend. But the Nerevarine carries something deadly. The Nerevarine carries the capacity to say no without vanishing. The Nerevarine carries agency. The prophecy requires the stranger to contract corpus. Think about that. You must be infected by the god disease. You must feel the tumors starting to knit your flesh, but you must survive it. You must cure the symptoms but keep the power. You must become immune to the dream while living inside it. This is the turning point. The act of horror ends here. The stranger has arrived. The pieces are on the board. The tribunal is crumbling. The ash storms are intensifying. The sleepers are chanting louder. And one silent prisoner walks into the Red Mountain, carrying a hammer and a blade, ready to perform surgery on reality itself. The dream is about to have a heart attack. To defeat the monster, you must first speak to the liar. High above the canals of his holy city, floating in the lotus position within his palace, waits Vivek, Lord Vivek, the warrior poet, the guardian of Vardenfell. Visually, he is a living contradiction. Half his skin is gold, Khymer, half his skin is gray, Dunmer. He represents the duality of his people, the past and the present, the blessing and the curse. But he also represents the duality of the universe, is and is not. Vivek is one of the few beings in existence who truly understands what Dagoth has become, because Vivek has walked the same path, but he took a different turn. He achieved Chim. Chim is a secret syllable of royalty. It is the high-voltage wire of Elder Scrolls metaphysics. Remember the Dwemer? They looked at the wheel, saw the I, the tower, and the O, the wheel, realized they were fake, and vanished. Zero sum. Dagoth looked at the wheel and said, "It is all me." Vivek looked at the wheel. He saw the terrible truth that he is a figment of a sleeping god's imagination, that his life, his city, his history are all just painted smoke. But instead of vanishing, and instead of consuming the world, he did something incredibly difficult. He had the audacity to say, "I exist anyway. I am the dream, and I am me." It is the ultimate act of ego, to look God in the eye and say, "No, I am real too." This state is Chim. It turns the mortal into a lucid dreamer. If you are in a dream and you know you are dreaming, you can fly. You can change the walls to water. You can stop time. This is Vivek's power. It is not magicka, it is narrative control. He can rewrite his own history. He wrote the 36 Lessons of Vivek, a holy book full of lies that became true simply because he wrote them. He claims he was born from an egg. He claims he taught the Nerevarine. Did he? It doesn't matter. In the dream, if you believe it hard enough, it happened. But Chim comes with a heavy price. To maintain it, you must constantly balance the equation. You must constantly love the world enough to let it exist as separate from you. Dagoth failed this test. He loved the world so much he wanted to eat it. Vivek loves the world enough to let it hurt him. Float into his chamber. The air is thick with incense and arrogance. He floats above the ground because he simply chooses not to acknowledge gravity. But look up. Above his head, Bar Tao, the Ministry of Truth. A giant, jagged meteor frozen in midair, just meters above the city. Vivek stopped it years ago. He holds it there with his will. But he did not throw it back into space. He kept it there, hanging over the heads of his people. Why? "If you stop loving me," he says, "I will let the rock fall." This is the darkness of the warrior poet. He is a savior, yes, but he holds a gun to the head of his own worshippers. He knows that his time is ending. The connection to the heart is severed. His divinity is fading. He is becoming mortal again. And unlike the Nerevarine, he cannot save the world. Because he is part of the problem. He is a false god living on stolen time. He hands you Wraithguard, the gauntlet. He looks at you with eyes that have seen the rim of the Arbis. It is all a game, his eyes seem to say, but it is a game we must play to the end. He is the most tragic figure in the lore. He knows the script is ending. He knows the page is turning. And he knows that when the Nerevarine destroys the heart, the lucid dream will end, and the falling rock will resume its course. If Vivek is the poet of the dream, sitting in his floating room contemplating the nature of love, then Tiber Septim, Talos, is the soldier who kicks down the door and takes the house. To understand the stakes of the Nereverine's journey, we must look at the only other successful lucid dreamer in history, the god of man, the ninth divine, Talos. History tells us he was a general who united Tamriel, but the deep lore tells us a horror story of cosmic revisionism. Talos did not just conquer the map, he drew the map. Consider Cyrodiil, the heartland of the Empire. If you played Oblivion, you saw rolling green hills and temperate forests, a generic European fantasy landscape. But read the ancient texts. Read the pocket guides from the First Era. Cyrodiil was a jungle, a sweltering equatorial rainforest filled with tiger dragons and moths the size of houses. It was endless rain and humidity. So where did the jungle go? It didn't die. It didn't fade. Talos removed it. When he achieved Chim, when he realized the world was a dream, he looked at the hostile jungle and found it annoying. It was bad for moving armies. It was bad for commerce. So he stood upon the white gold tower and he shouted. Not a shout of fire or ice, a shout of refusal. I breathe now in royalty and reshape this land which is mine. I do this for you, red legions, for I love you. And the reality shifted. The trees dissolved. The humidity vanished. The history of the world rewrote itself so that Cyrodiil had always been a temperate forest. He didn't just change the present, he changed the past. He edited the save file of the universe. This is the terrifying power of the ruling king. To the people living in Cyrodiil, nothing happened. They always lived in a forest. Their memories were overwritten instantly. Only the higher spirits, the mythical entities, remember the sweat in the vines. But how did he achieve this? Like Dagoth-Ur, he needed a boost. He needed the Numidium. Yes, the same brass god that the Dwemer built. Talos found it. He rebuilt it. But he didn't have the heart of Lorkhan. So he improvised. He betrayed his own battle mage, Zorin Arctus. He betrayed his ally, Wolfarth. He soul-trapped them into the Mantella, a gem of concentrated betrayal. He powered the robot with the souls of his friends, and he unleashed the Numidium on the High Elves of Alinor. It is said the siege lasted only an hour. The Numidium breaks time. The High Elves surrendered because they were fighting a war that was already lost in the future. Why does this matter to our story? Because it shows us what Dagoth-Ur wants to become. Talos used Chim to stabilize the world, to reinforce the wheel. He became a rivet in the structure of the Arbus. Dagoth-Ur wants to use the same power to melt the wheel. Talos is the god of let it be. Dagoth-Ur is the god of let it end. The Nerevarine stands between them, a tiny mortal spark caught between the gears of two impossibly large metaphysical machines. You are not just fighting a sorcerer in a volcano. You are fighting to prevent the dreamer from having a lucid nightmare that wipes the canvas clean. The jungle is gone. The rock is floating. The robot is waiting. It is time to descend. The books have been read. The gods have been spoken to. The prophecies have been parsed. Now, there is only the walk. To reach the end of the dream, you must cross the boundary of sanity. You stand before the ghost fence, a shimmering, translucent wall of spiritual energy. It hums with the souls of dead ancestors, trapped in a magical matrix to hold back the blight. It is the only thing keeping the nightmare contained, and you have to turn it off, or slip through it. Step through the veil. The air changes instantly. The sky turns from the blue-gray of Morrowind to a bruised, sickly red. The sun is choked by clouds of heavy particulate matter. It is a twilight that never ends. You are now in the Red Mountain region, the Foyada Mamea, the Fire River. This is not a landscape of nature. It is a landscape of disease. The trees are dead, white skeletons twisting in agony. The rocks are sharp, obsidian knives waiting to cut your boots. And the silence? No, it is not silent here. The wind howls like a dying animal, and beneath the wind, the thrum. Thump, 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 thump. You can feel it in your teeth. The heart of Lorcan is beating. It is the baseline of the apocalypse. As you climb higher, the architecture begins to shift. You see the ruins of the Dwemer, brass towers jutting out of the ash like broken ribs. But they have been colonized. The sixth house has moved in. Strange, fleshy growths cover the metal, pulsating tumors, giant corpus meat vines wrapping around the gears. It is a fusion of the mechanical and the biological. The divine skin Dagoth promised. You encounter the lieutenants, the ash vampires. They are not vampires in the Gothic sense. They are immortals who draw their life directly from the heart. They are the brothers of Dagoth. They do not attack you with rage. They welcome you. They speak in riddles. They offer you brandy. They offer you power. Come closer, moon and star, they whisper. Lord Dagoth has waited so long. It is terrifying because they are polite. They are not monsters. They are hosts. They truly believe they are inviting you to a party at the end of the world. Finally, you reach the summit, the citadel of Dagoth. It is a massive, spiraling structure built into the crater's lip. Great pipes hiss steam into the red sky. It looks like a factory designed by a madman. The entrance is a gaping maw, a tunnel leading down into the throat of the volcano. You descend, deeper, past the ventilation shafts, past the slave pits where the dreamers work in blissful unison. The heat rises. Your armor feels heavy. Your mind feels light. The whispers are loud now. They are not coming from your ears. They are coming from the center of your brain. You enter the chamber of the heart, and there he is, the Sharmat, the devil. A tall, golden-skinned figure wearing nothing but a loincloth and that terrible, three-eyed mask. He stands before the colossal brass frame of Akulakan, the second Numidium. He is caressing the heart. He turns to you. He does not draw a weapon. He opens his arms. Welcome, Nerevar. Together we shall speak for the law and the land, and shall drive the mongrel dogs of the Empire from Morrowind. He sounds sane. That is the horror. He sounds completely, utterly rational. He offers you the final choice. Submit to the dream, or try to wake it up. The hammer, Sunder, is in your hand. The blade, Keening, is in your belt. The gauntlet, Wraithguard, is on your wrist. The tools of the atheist dwarves, about to be used by a prophecy-bound prisoner to kill a god who thinks he is the universe. Strike the tone. The battle begins not with a clash of steel, but with a clash of wills. Dagoth does not rush you. He floats. He teleports. He casts spells that feel like headaches. He pleads with you while he tries to crush your skull. I am the older brother, he booms, his voice echoing from every brass pipe in the chamber. I am the Shaper. Why do you resist the inevitable? To him, your resistance is just a tantrum, a finger refusing to obey the hand. But you are not a finger. You are the prisoner. You are the glitch. You must do the unthinkable. You must ignore the God attacking you. Turn your back on him. Look at the heart. It hangs in the center of the room, a massive, grotesque organ of flesh and light. It beats with a rhythm that rewrites DNA. You realize that you cannot kill Dagoth-Ur. As long as this heart beats, he is eternal. He will just respawn, reform, redream himself into existence. You must unplug the universe. You raise sunder, the hammer of tonal weight. You swing it. Boom! It is not a sound of impact. It is the sound of a bell tolling for the death of an era. The heart shudders. The tone disrupts the magical frequency that binds it to this plane. It screams, a psychic shriek that bleeds from the ears of every elf in Morrowind at that exact second. Dagoth-Ur freezes. For the first time, his mask betrays emotion. Fear. What are you doing? Stop! You are betraying your own divinity. He realizes too late. You are not trying to become a god. You are trying to destroy the concept of gods. You take keening, the blade of tonal architectonics. It hums with a high-pitched whine, like a dentist's drill made of starlight. You strike the heart again. You carve the tone. You cut the connection. Slash, slash, slash. The enchantments shatter. The bindings snap like old rubber bands. The heart of Lorcan, the battery of the tribunal, the soul of the Akulakan, begins to wither. It shrinks, it convulses, and then, with a final wet gasp, it vanishes. It does not die, it simply leaves. It returns to the void, or perhaps it just stops being here. The silence that follows is heavier than the mountain. Dagoth-Ur falls. He does not die heroically, he simply stops working. Without the heart, his logic fails. His I am dissolves. He looks at his hands fading into ash. How? He whispers. I thought I was... He realizes the truth in his final moment. He was never the dreamer. He was just another nightmare. The giant brass construct, Akulakan, groans. Without the heart to power it, the structure cannot hold itself up. Massive gears grind to a halt. Pipes burst. The cave begins to collapse. You run. You run through the crumbling citadel. You run past the confused ash vampires who are turning into dust. You run past the dreamers who are waking up screaming, wondering why they are naked and standing in a volcano. You burst out into the ash-choked air of the crater. The red sky is churning. The blight is lifting. But something has changed. The world feels smaller, less magical, more mundane. You have saved Tamriel, but at what cost? You have severed the link to the divine. You have turned the gods back into mortals. The Vec is dying. The magic that holds the moonlit Bar Dao is fading. You have saved the world by condemning it to the slow, entropic decay of time. This is the victory of the prisoner. You chose freedom over eternity. You chose a hard life over a beautiful dream. The red wind stops. The ash storms, which have raged for centuries, settle into a gray carpet on the ground. For the first time in an age, the sun shines on Vardenfell without filter. It is a bright, piercing blue. The people cheer. They dance in the streets of Balmora. They burn the ash statues. The Sharmat is dead! The Nerevarine has saved us! But you do not cheer. You stand on the docks, watching the waves. You feel the change in the air. You know the secret physics of what you just did. You visit Vivek one last time. The warrior poet is still floating, but he is lower now, closer to the floor. His golden skin looks dull. He does not mourn his loss of divinity. He smiles, a sad, knowing smile. "It is done," he says. "The door is closed. The key is lost. We are all just men and women now." He knows what is coming. He knows that without the heart, his power to hold Bar Tao, the lie he told gravity, is gone. The meteor is still hanging there, suspended by the lingering fumes of his will. But the momentum is returning. The velocity it had when he stopped it thousands of years ago is still stored inside the rock. It will not fall today. It will not fall tomorrow. But in a few years, when Vivek disappears, when the magic finally runs dry, it will fall. And it will carry the force of a nuclear impact. This is the hidden horror of your victory. To save the world from the slavery of the dream, you had to doom the province to destruction. The red year is coming. The meteor will strike. The impact will trigger Red Mountain. Vardenfell will be incinerated. The entire culture you just saved, the great houses, the temple, the mushroom towers, will be wiped off the map. The Nerevarine is not a savior. The Nerevarine is a terminal diagnosis. You bought them a few years of blue sky before the end. And you? Where do you go? You are a myth now. You cannot buy bread in the market without people falling to their knees. You cannot sleep without the eyes of the Emperor watching you. You are too big for this small, dying province. You are a prisoner who has broken the bars, but now you have nowhere to walk but the void. Rumors begin to spread. The Nerevarine is leaving. Not to Cyrodiil, not to Skyrim, but to Akavir, the Dragonland to the east, the continent of the future, the land where the Saeshi ate the men. Why there? Perhaps because it is the only place left on the map that is still a mystery, the only place where the dream is still wild. You board a ship, not a prison ship this time, a solitary vessel. The sails catch the wind. The coast of Morrowind, the land of ash and ghosts, fades into the mist behind you. You look back one last time at the Red Mountain. It is quiet now, a sleeping volcano, a tomb for a god who loved the world too much. As you sail into the unknown, you realize the ultimate truth of the Elder Scrolls protagonist. You are not a resident of this world. You are a tourist. And when the quest is over, when the main quest line is checked off, you don't belong here anymore. The screen fades to black, but the dream continues. For everyone else, life goes on. For you, the music stops. We return to where we began. The silence, the void, the sleep. The story of the Nerevarine is over. The story of Dagoth is over. But the story of the universe continues to spiral. Because in the Elder Scrolls, there is one final secret. A secret deeper than the heart, higher than the tower. It is the concept of amaranth. If the universe is a dream, and we are all figments of a sleeping God, then we are trapped. We are prisoners of someone else's subconscious. Even the Nerevarine, for all their power, is just a character in a book that will eventually be closed. But what if a character could leave the book? What if a dreamer could dream of someone who becomes a dreamer themselves? This is the amaranth, the flower child. It is the state beyond Chim. To achieve Chim is to say, I exist within the dream. To achieve amaranth is to wake up, turn your back on the dream, and go to sleep in your own bed to start a new universe, to become a Godhead yourself. It is a lonely path. It requires total sensory deprivation, total detachment. You must love yourself so much that you become an entire world. Some say Anu did it. Some say Lorcan failed at it. Some say the Nerevarine sailed to Akavir to find it. But let us pull back the camera. Pull back from Akavir. Pull back from Tamriel. Pull back from the planet Nirn. Pull back past the sun and the stars, back to the primal void. See the sleeping Godhead? He is shifting. He is murmuring. Every era of history is just a REM cycle. Every war is a twitch of his eyelid. The scary part isn't that he might wake up and destroy us. The scary part is, who is dreaming him? Is it turtles all the way down? Is it an infinite chain of dreamers dreaming dreamers? And where do you fit in? You, the listener. You, watching this screen. You have listened to a story about a world that doesn't exist, filled with people who never lived, fighting for a reality that is mathematically impossible. And yet, you felt something. Fear? Awe? Sadness? If you felt it, then it is real. For a moment, the dream of the Godhead intersected with your mind. You became part of the amaranth. The screen flickers. The grain becomes heavy. The vintage ink begins to run. The comic book is closing. The story is done. But before you go, before you return to your own reality, ask yourself one question. When you close your eyes tonight, are you sure you are the one sleeping? Or are you just the character waking up? Sleep tight. We are watching you dream.